You're listening to Question Reality. Question Reality with Priscilla Leona. Priscilla Leona.
Hi! Welcome to the Question Reality Radio Show. I'm Priscilla Leona, producer and host, and we are coming to you live from Los Angeles, California. For over 21 years, if you've been a follower of the show, for over 21 years, you know that our show helps you to get tips, advice, and resource information about how and what it takes to make it in the entertainment industry. And we have a diverse range of professionals who come on the show and they work in front of and also behind the scenes, behind the camera in the entertainment industry. So some of our guests have included Oscar nominees. We've had we've had so many Emmy Award winners, so many Grammy Award winners, Tony Award winners. We have reality television stars, as well as people that are on level seasoned professionals on various other levels, working their way up to get that Tony and Emmy and Oscar nomination. So if you missed any of the episodes, you can go to the following sites and watch all of our shows. Again, 21 years worth. So we've got I don't think there's any profession in the entertainment industry I haven't had on the show. Unfortunately, I get emails asking for adult entertainment stars. I'm like, no, we can't do that. Although I am tempted because, as you go on in life, you need some extra little spicy tips for the bedroom, which they could provide for the audience. But no, we can't do that. So if you missed any of our episodes, again, you can visit these sites, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and X, all under or at Priscilla Leona. Again, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and X at Priscilla Leona. Our website is questionrealityradioshow.com, questionrealityradioshow.com, and also Facebook, Question Reality Radio Show. Now, every week I try to give my own little tip of advice for people, and I do this one over and over. I find it because it just it drives me crazy. Here it is. As far as your branding, you must keep it consistent. It is so important that when you are starting out, when you're branding yourself, you have to keep a name which everyone can find you. If it's your name, lock it in. If it's a film, lock it in. If it's a book, lock it in. But you have to keep it consistent. So many times people make the mistake of having their website is one address, and then they're on social media, Facebook with another name, and then Instagram another name. And so what do you think is going to happen if you do that, if you're not keeping it consistent? People are not going to find you. People have 5 to 10 seconds of an attention span these days. We're just not holding on to it like we used to. So when you meet someone, say they want to book you for a gig, and they know your name, so they're going to go to Google and they're going to go, because people don't really carry cards these days. I'm not against cards. I think it's always good to have a card, but most people are not doing that these days. So if they remember your name, the first thing you're going to do is they're going to go to Google and they're going to type your name. You should immediately, whatever your name is, everything should be, boom, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, you name it, it should be right there under your name. Okay. So branding, very important. Don't do that cutesy stuff like Debbie Does Dallas or something, Patsy is a petunia. Don't do anything cute. Keep it consistent. Try to keep it, please keep it consistent. Okay. Favor. If you enjoy our guests today, please consider subscribing to their sites, or at least give them a little thumb. We all need a little thumb little up thumb, and we'll provide their social media information at the beginning of the show, also at the end of the show. And this applies to us as well. If you like the entertainment industry advice that you're getting from our platform, and you support what we're trying to achieve, which is helping to provide entertainment industry career advice, please subscribe to our sites too, and we will reciprocate. Everybody needs an extra follower, extra like. It's the way of the world, people. Whether we like it or not, that is it. That's how we're going to get the coins for our purse. Got to get the coins. Again, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, X at Priscilla Leona. Website, questionrealityradioshow.com. And Facebook, Question Reality Radio Show. Now, if you would like to appear on our show to promote your projects, showcase your talents, or if you want to refer someone, please go to our website, which is, again, questionrealityradioshow.com. Go to the contacts link, and it's really easy. It's just your name, your email, your website, I think. And you can also email me at priscillaleona@yahoo.com. And you will be vetted like you are on the assembly line. Now, woo! I usually do an advertisement before the guest, but this person has so much going on that I just didn't want to waste one single second with an advertisement today. She is, oh my gosh, I think we would have a whole dictionary of different words. I think she meets most of the words in the dictionary that are all good words. Her name is Carole Anne Kaufman. She's also, oh my gosh, she's going to kill me. I forgot to take that picture out. Albert, I forgot. Take that picture down. I think that's one of the most beautiful pictures I have ever seen her. But for some reason, she does not like that picture. We're going to find out why, because if I looked like that in that picture, I would use it on everything. We're going to find out where the hatred's coming in for that picture. Okay, so Carole Anne Kaufman, a.k.a. the Whistling Diva, is a two-time world champion musical whistler. She's the recipient of the IWC Whistling Entertainer of the Year Award and the special award at the World Whistlers Convention. She's president of Creative Being, Inc. She's a business owner, an international performer. She's a stand-up comedian. She's an event producer. She's a writer. She's an elite comedy writing coach. She's an inspirational speaker, a host, and a master of ceremonies. Now, I think there are more titles. You know how we're all multi-hyphenated in the entertainment industry? Well, I think she has the most titles of anyone who's ever been on this show. Now, I'd love for you to go to her sites. They are mastersofwhistling.com, mastersofwhistling.com, whistlingdiva.com, monroviafest.com, and she's on Facebook. Oh, let's test. Did she do it consistently? I think so. Facebook, Masters of Whistling. Yes. On X, Master Whistling. Instagram, Masters of Whistling. Yes. And also she has a YouTube channel, and I believe that's under her name, Carole Anne Kaufman. And we will find out if she has any more sites that were not included on that, but that'll get you started. There's a picture of her performing at one of my events with one of her fans. Now, this, I think, and she can correct me, this is a picture at the Masters of Musical Whistling 2023 and NHK Morning Show Japan that just happened in June last month with Kamiko Wakayama. And I'm not sure who that is, if that's the same lady or if that's another. Looks like that might be another contestant, but we'll find out. And her other credits include being the producer of the Masters of Musical Whistling International Festival and Competition in Hollywood and the Monrovia Music Fest in Southern California. She is, as I said, president of a nonprofit organization called Creative Being, which aims to inspire community and creativity through artistic self-expression. Oh, look at that. I think that's on the set of the show in Japan. We'll find out. More exciting news in the world of whistling is that a documentary is being edited and finalized by the award-winning team called Finch No Worries. Oh, I love that little, don't you just love that little graphic? Oh, that's so cute. I want one. I think Carole Anne made one for me one time, and Lord knows, I don't know what happened to it, but I love that little thing. So as I said, that, oh, no, get that picture off. Okay. Again, a documentary is currently being edited with the award-winning team Finch No Worries in Australia about the world of whistling, centered on Carole's 2023 Masters of Musical Whistling competition. So that's very exciting. So the next time you hear a melodious whistle, and look, she's in melodious whistle position right there, it might just be the Whistling Diva herself, Carole Anne Kaufman. So without further ado, let's get her on here. Woo! Welcome, Carole Anne Kaufman. Where are you, girl?
Hello.
Oh, Albert, put me on the other side. There I am. I don't know. I like being on the right-hand side of the screen. So how did we do? Is that intro good enough for you, my darling?
I'm feeling pretty important right about now. Thank you. That was incredible. I was a little blushing a little bit here on the side.
Well, I think I was getting like stars. I was doing the multi-hyphenate titles, and I thought, oh my God, is it ever going to end? There's so many. And you know, it's because you've been working your ass off since I've known you. I think I met you in 1997. And you have been building your empire ever since. So it's right and justly so that you have all those titles, for God's sakes. But you know what we want to start with, because a lot of people who meet you at my events, they ask me questions and I think, I don't know the answer, but I'm going to ask. Okay, so one of them was, who was, I guess this is how I worded it, but it was asked differently. Who was Carole Anne Kaufman as a child? Take us back to little Carole Anne Kaufman. What was she like? Who was she?
That is so sweet. Thanks for asking. Well, I think I was a pretty precocious kid. I definitely, I was a little bit shy kind of to start off. And then I remember the fable in my family is that I said, I'm not going to be shy once I'm 5. And so that was when I apparently learned the power of positive thinking. I made that decision, and that's kind of what happened. I decided to just be a little bit more outgoing, and I definitely was maybe kind of found when I was a kid that being funny definitely worked in my favor in the family. So I was always trying to find clever things and compete with my older brothers and sisters who are over a decade older than me. So it was always a little bit of a stretch to feel like, I could fit in. And I just really enjoyed family time. We used to always take Sundays and go out and do wonderful adventures on the weekend. And so that's kind of like how I live my life. I always make sure that I try to embed some adventures in the weekend in my life. I love to travel. And I think a lot of that started at the beginning, where my mom would dig out the calendar section of the LA Times and say, okay, where are we going today? And I think, that's so important. We have to remember, in this world where we all are grinding and working so hard, how do we get those refreshing things that help us, to the next week and keep going?
Yeah, ever since I've known you, you have been traveling all over the world. How many countries have you actually been to now?
I've been to 26 countries and counting. I've been, trying to get those numbers up. We had a little pause recently, but I went to 3 countries most recently on a big trip to Vietnam and Cambodia, and made a quick stop in North Korea. So I was, I felt like, okay, I'm building up my stamps and building up my experiences in life. And, travel is amazing because it helps you appreciate what you have and appreciate other things as well.
Now, how did you first become interested in being a whistler? I'm not going to say professional because I'm going to ask you that question later, because there's a difference in wanting to become a whistler and a professional. How you did? So what was it that actually made you say, "Ooh, I really like that. I want to be a whistler"? Was it someone you saw? Was it someone that inspired you?
Well, I think, art, which, of course, whistling is just another musical art form. Usually little artistic things are started when we were a kid. We get the bug, we get the interest. And so my dad was a whistler. And of course, I wanted to be just like my dad. So he's the one that, that exposed me to whistling. And, we loved to sing in our family. We were very musical. I picked up a violin. And so I think that, I never realized, probably the biggest advantage I have is being a whistler. And the reason that I got pretty good was that I didn't realize I was practicing, because on my violin, it would never get me to pick up that violin to practice once I got out of class. But whistling, you never knew you were practicing. You were actually just whistling. You were just doing it. And so over the years, you kind of hone your craft, and I wasn't really shy. So I think that worked to my advantage, that I was always willing to kind of be loud, be out there. And I'm basically known for being very kind of having good volume and being very clear in my whistling. So I guess, your personality might reflect your whistling style a little bit.
That's interesting. Now, now was your dad a professional whistler, or did he just like to whistle?
Yeah.
Whistle while he worked.
Exactly.
So what steps did you take to start to pursue a career as a whistler?
Well, it's kind of like any art form. You're just participating at first, right? That maybe you're just looking for outlets to join other people that enjoy your art form. So when I found out about the International Whistlers Convention in North Carolina, that went on for over 40 years. And when I found out about that, I was like, ooh, that sounds pretty fun. I think I'm pretty good. I could go. I'm going to try. And so I ended up, sort of at the last minute, buying a ticket, practicing some songs, flying out to North Carolina, and I won first runner up. And so I was like, oh my God, I think this could be my sport. And so it took me actually 4 years. I was so cocky at the beginning. I barely practiced. I would always show up at the last minute and do really well, but I kept not winning. And so it wasn't until the International Whistlers Convention went to Japan, and I was like, all right, I'm going to Japan. I've really got to invest. I did a fundraiser. I did all these things. And that's when I won first place, became the world champion. And it was life-changing in so many ways. And the first way was in the need to elevate myself in order to win the first place, right? Like as artists, sometimes maybe in our particular field, we're used to being the best. You know what I'm saying? And we're definitely used to feeling like we're the best, that's for sure. And so, so getting there, and that's a real ego blow, right? What do you mean I'm not first? I think I was better, right? And then happening again, second place. What a minute, third time I was second place again. Then I won third place. And that's when I said, okay, maybe I need to practice. Maybe I need to tighten up my game a little bit. And I've come to realize that, as Pollyanna as this might sound, it's one of those moments in life where I realize now, had I not had to really work for it, I don't think that I would be in the position that I am, with such appreciation for my craft, so much passion for what I do, so much interest in trying to help other people to find their pathway through art or whistling, whatever it may be. So, sometimes those losses, I remember telling myself, right, crying on the sidelines secretly, because I thought, especially on the second year, I thought for sure it was me. I was like, getting, ready to step up to and the winner is, right? I was like halfway there. And it wasn't me. And I remember thinking all of that bullshit that they say, if it doesn't kill you, makes you stronger, or, hey, there's a reason for everything, all this stuff. Still what I told myself. And I found, not too many years later that actually there was a deeper gratification for what I was able to accomplish, and not just win because.
Right. Now, I'm not familiar enough with the world of whistling to know, is there, if you want to pursue that career, is there a school that you go to, or an academy, or how would you learn how to whistle? Because I would imagine, just like singing, you have to use proper techniques. And where do you go to learn how to do that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And that's one of the things that sets musical whistling apart, is it has this sort of very organic grassroots ambiance, because there's really isn't a school for whistlers. There have been a few over the years. In the 1940s, Agnes Woodward was a famous woman who had a women's whistling school. It was an obscurity, if you will, right? It was very unusual. I mean, in the past, women were really forbidden from whistling for the most part. So this particular school was really unusual. We'll get into that a little bit later in my master's thesis, and talking about sexism and whistling.
Okay.
It's a really big passion of mine.
So there's still no place that teaches it? What about YouTube videos? Is there a person out there that will teach you proper techniques on YouTube?
Of course. So YouTube is very useful for all kinds of things. So first of all, whistling is something that, as far as getting your first notes and learning how to do music, Mary Had a Little Lamb, or whatever the beginner is, that's always going to be sort of your own personal exploration, right? You see somebody whistle, usually it's your dad, it's your cousin, it's your mom, something like that. You hear it on TV, and now you want to try to whistle, right? First you get a note, then you get a few notes. And from there, like, for example, I told you I took violin as a kid. We loved to sing at the house, right? So musicality, the understanding of music, the innate kind of sense of musicality, your sense of being in tune or out of tune, right? Those different things. Those are things that are both learned and cultivated, and sometimes it seems people have a natural skill. I had a pretty decent ear as a kid. That's been a really great tool for me. Studying violin, studying different things, studying the theater actually was what gave me a huge advantage as a whistler, because I'm sure, as you well know, when you go to acting school, they're teaching you, the Greek way, right? How do you project to the woman in the back seat? How do you do with these giant audiences? And it's all through diaphragmatic breathing, right? These operatic type of breathing. And so that helps with the whistling immensely. To just circle back to your question, for example, I do private lessons, right? So there's other professional whistlers out there that you can link up with. And, we do a lot via Zoom these days. And I really enjoy working with elite artists. So whether it's elite stand-up comedians or upper-level elite whistlers, I want to help people go from really good to amazing. That's really my focus, because so much of it is organic, right? You have to practice. How does your mouth make the sound? Because there's different types of whistling as well. We have pucker whistling. That's what I do, right? I just a standard pucker whistling. There's also throat whistling. There's teeth whistling. There's palatal whistling. There's these different ways to make sound from your mouth other than talking, and all the different ways you can whistle.
I had no idea there was anything other than a pucker whistle.
Yep. Can you
give me an example of the other ones? Because I didn't know they existed.
Yeah, so I can't do it, but I could sort of explain. So teeth whistling, for example, you might see somebody, they got a little, they're using their teeth and having the air come out in a little bit of a different way. Or with palatal whistling, the air is going from the roof of your mouth and the top of your tongue. So you're kind of, whereas I just get air, right? But you can, if you learn how to manipulate your tongue, you can get some notes out. So it's very rare that somebody that does an alternative technique gets the kind of clarity that somebody maybe with a pucker whistle can get. But there are phenomenal world champions and, upper echelon whistlers who have all kinds of different techniques out there.
At these competitions, are any of those other techniques exhibited within the competitions?
Yeah, definitely. And I've seen all kinds of stuff. I've seen something called duotone, where people can have two tones simultaneously. So I know one gal who was actually, I went neck and neck with her. I remember I beat her one year. She beat me one year at the World Championship. But she did a thing like this, and she'll have one note here and the other note on the other side. I mean, it was phenomenal. You know,
Wow.
yeah, there's so many different techniques out there. You know, the main is still going to be pucker whistling.
I had no idea that there were. I thought you just. I had no idea. I mean, I've heard people whistle by getting a cab that way, but I didn't know what that was. Wow, that's amazing. Now, okay, so was there a certain person whom you admired in the world of professional whistling that you can remember? Like, I don't know the names, like singers. There's Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey, la la la. Who are some names in the world of professional whistling that you think are?
Yeah, so for me personally, there were no names in the world of whistling, and I think your viewers and listeners will agree with that, right there. That's the whole game that I'm trying to play here, which is how do we take this instrument that has been loaded with superstition and loaded with sexism and all kinds of other different things and thought for decades to be uncouth or dangerous in certain situations, and it really degraded it to like just noise, right? And the fact is that done properly, whistling can be a world-class instrument that can really provide a lot of pleasure and beauty. And so, there are now, if you Google, you're going to find, if you go onto YouTube, you're going to find whistlers, you're going to find champions, you're going to find people that are doing phenomenal things with their instrument. That wasn't really possible when I was a kid. Although I will say, definitely a spark was created. I was watching, I think it was That's Incredible, which, only your viewers that are 45 and older will remember. It was incredible. I was actually just talking about it, where, it was sort of the precursor to America's Got Talent, right? Where they would go out and they would focus on people who had unusual talents. It could be anything from hot dog eating to, musical whistling. And I was about 8 years old, and I remember I was kind of late. It was the 8 o'clock show. I wasn't really supposed to be awake. And I was waiting and waiting because they said a champion whistler was coming into the show. And so I waited, and he was the last to act. And I remember two feelings. One was being really impressed and being, and excited. And especially as it was coming, like I noticed something was born inside of me, right? It was like, oh my God, professional whistler. What is this? I couldn't wait. And then when the gentleman whistled, he had a very unusual technique that wasn't a regular pucker whistler. It was kind of like, maybe filtered and had a little, it was the 80s, so everything had kind of a synthesizer sound, and he had this very whistle. And I remember thinking at 8 years old, oh well, I guess I'll never be a champion. I can't do that, whatever he just did, like I can't do that. And so I was kind of losing the dream at 8 years old, and then 20 years later finding myself in North Carolina.
Wow. Well, my ear just perked up to so many things you were talking about that I, again, had no idea. When you said that whistling, what did you say about suspicion, it being under? What? Tell me about that. That was part of your master thesis. Tell us what your master thesis was about. And I had no idea there was like some kind of witchcraft around whistling. Tell me about that.
Okay, so I don't think there's much witchcraft around whistling, but I think there was, and in certain circles, the idea of that, right? So I don't know that it was ever really.
How could that be? That's weird.
Okay, so a couple different actual reasons. It's pretty interesting. So first, just let me start by saying that I went back to school, and 5 years ago I wrote my master's thesis. First thing was I wanted to make sure I had a really thesis-y kind of title.
Yeah.
So I went long. It's called Heresy to Artistry: The Upward Mobility of Musical Whistling Through Rhetorical Reframing. And so basically the idea is saying that we're taking something from not okay to something that is artistry. And that basically the title is talking about how we talk about things alters how we feel and how we think about things. And my idea has been to alter the way people perceive musical whistling. Then I had to go down the rabbit hole to find out why was it being perceived in a particular way. It was all sparked by some email chat groups. They don't exist anymore, but when the internet was thriving in the way that it was 15 years ago, there was a lot of conversations going on via email, kind of like what we do, with our online world right now.
Yeah.
And there was this argument that, so full disclosure, when I got into the World Whistlers world, we had a men's division and a women's division. And that was because when I would compete, there would be sometimes 40 men, 50 men, and anywhere from 7 to 10 women. And so you can tell that the averages were very different. And, it got me very curious. How come there's no women here, right? I grew up in a feminist household. There were no restrictions about what women could do. It'd be nice to win. That was the rule. But, so we had to, I had to kind of evaluate, and I was curious what's going on. And in these chat groups, a lot of people were asserting, well, women have just as much chance to win as men. Women can be up there. And it's like, well, that may be true theoretically, but if you have 40 men and 7 women, your odds are not the same, right? And so those odds are reflected out in the world. To answer your question, what I found out through the research is that to address first superstition, right? So for example, whistling has been considered a superstition all around the world, from Russia to every country that you can imagine. So one of the places that the superstition of whistling lives is on like Navy boats and theaters, right? I found this in the research. Now, I also found out why. So when people are dealing with superstition, they just are kind of believing a superstition, right? The witchcraft that you're talking about. When in fact, so for example, they said that whistling is bad luck on a Navy ship. What is really going on is that Navy ships use whistles to signal dinner time, lunchtime, hey, somebody's trying to attack us, all that stuff, right? So if somebody's whistling casually, that's going to interrupt the communication systems, right? So eventually it becomes, hey, don't whistle, because after, 20, 30, 40 years, it's like, hey, it's bad to whistle, right? And it turns into this superstition. Then what I found out is that in theaters, when people would retire or they'd be off season at the Navy, they would be the ones working as grips in the theater, right? Where you would have people working up in the rafters and doing all that stuff. And so they would whistle these communications up in the rafters, and that's the way you would communicate. And so you couldn't have the theater actors whistling, because then it would interrupt that communication system. So there's lots of different reasons that things happen, but more importantly is actually what you said. It is perceived as witchcraft. It is perceived as bad. And once you get that reputation, then you're basically told, hey, don't do that.
Wow, I had no idea. Never even heard of this. And I research things a lot. I have no idea. Now I got to go research that on my own. Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so can this was a question. A lot of people sent me questions, and this comes from Linda from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Thank you, Linda. She said, hey, Carole Anne, can a person earn a living as a professional whistler, or do you have to have a job as a backup career? Thank you, Linda.
Thanks, Linda, for your question. Great question. I think the answer lives generically inside of the world of most artists, right? Or a lot of artists, which is, if your artistry is a boutique artistry, or your artistry is something that's very common, it also might be very common that you might need to supplement your income, right? So the question is it possible? From what I've seen, it's sort of possible, right? So I have 2 friends here, Chatru and Derek Bodkin. They both whistle for Cirque du Soleil's Corteo, right? And they tour the world whistling with Corteo. They're making a living. They're paying for their family's life. They're breadwinning, all of the things, right? They're doing that. But Have they done that for 25 years? Is their only career for the last 25? Not necessarily, right? Derek Bodkin, for example, is a musician, right? He's a phenomenal world-class musician, a world champion whistler, tours with Corteo, and then he also supplements his income when he's not on tour with other jobs. You know, he currently has a job in the art field, right? So I have a day job. I am a hairstylist, which allows me to, you know, I have my own studio. So when the doors are open, I have an appointment. If I don't have an appointment, the doors are closed. I'm touring. I'm doing performances. I'm at Priscilla's, hanging out with her, you know, whatever it is that I can find myself busy with. But that's a true benefit. And I think that we underscore trade a lot in this country, but we're getting there, right? Is that if you can put yourself in a position where you're doing something, where you're providing a service, getting compensated properly for it, you know, making your own hours is a wonderful way to be able to integrate your art form in your life.
Yeah. And my God, whistling, I mean, even if you keep it as a hobby, it's a joyous thing to do. And it's fun. And it's a way to reach out to the community. You have, I imagine there's a whole community of whistlers. You get to travel. I say keep a day job, do your hobby, start your hobby out whistling, and then see how it goes. We have another question from Sylvia from Red Bank, New Jersey. Ooh, they used to have some parties in Red Bank. Oh my God, they were the best parties. We were in Jersey in the 80s. Okay, she said, Carole, what's the best route to take to work your way into the position of being a professional whistler? I'm not ready to give up my day job at Denny's. I think it's at D-I-N-I. Well, at Denny's. But I really love whistling so much. I do it all day and all night, and it drives my husband and kids crazy.
All right. Well, it's a great question. It's really fun to hear people talk about wanting to be professionals, right? I don't think 10 years ago when I was a guest on your show, Priscilla, that's not the questions people were asking, right? It's like getting on people's radar a little bit more about, about all the things your show is about, right? How do we integrate our art form into our life? Right. And I absolutely love your message, because I remember going to arts high school and arts college, and it seemed like some of the artists I was dealing with, they thought they had to either be a full-time pro or nothing. And I just thought that was tragic. You know, art sources us, whether it's the main thing that is paying us or not. It's who I am. And so I think it's really awesome that we're looking at ways to integrate who we are. And it goes far beyond getting compensated monetarily, right? When it comes to our passion. Nothing wrong with that. We'd love to be compensated. It's a way that we reciprocate with people. But I like.
You are being compensated by the joy and love, and you're compensating your spirit and your soul, because you're doing something you love, right?
Exactly.
You're giving yourself your own compensation. You're paying your damn self.
It's the ultimate self-care, right? Absolutely.
Right. I love it. Now, what was the most challenging process you experienced as a professional whistler, and how did you overcome obstacles?
Well, let me weave the previous question, which I rambled so long I didn't even answer, and try to integrate that one, because I think we're actually speaking to what we're talking about, which is the greatest obstacle is, how do I get paid? How do I get out there and do it? How do I get gigs, right? Stuff like that. Yeah. And I'll talk about the sexism in a minute, but so look at, you have to carve your own pathway. Yeah. If you're trying to be a whistler, then you're creating your own career, just like I am, right? One of the ways to do it is to get connected to your community. So my nonprofit, it's called Creative Being, as you said. We're all about inspiring community and creativity through artistic self-expression. That came from doing these whistling festivals and noticing what happens when the whistlers get together. And now all of a sudden I have a craft that I share with others. I am a part of a community that elevates what I'm doing, who I am, my identity as an artist, which is one of the most fulfilling feelings. And I absolutely love art, because for art, there's no rules. I dare you to give me a rule about art that we all agree on. We all get to decide what art is. There is nobody out there that gets to decide that. There's a lot of rules in life, but art is not a place where rules live. And people, there can be people that will argue with me with that, but they can never win this argument, because it's art. It's the most open, nebulous, loving entity in the world. It really is our true essence. You know, I like to say, if it comes from the heart, it's art, right? Because we like to degrade what we do. We like to minimize what we do and say, oh, I didn't get paid for it, that must not be an art form. Well, guess what? That's a profession. And having a profession collapse with your art doesn't make your art better. It just makes it paid for. And people at this pinnacle that we have to get this and I have to do that. What I think, and I think you'd agree, because we've already talked about it, when it comes to art, we have to do art, be art, whatever that means to you. And so as far as the obstacles and those things, our attitudes are our biggest obstacle, you know. You know, thinking about whether or not, am I good enough? Am I as good? You know, I talked about my friends in Cirque du Soleil. Every time I'm whistling next to them, it's like, I can't do triplicates. I don't do 30-second notes. You know, that's not my style. It's so cool when they can do all this stuff. It's mind blowing. You know, like how people look at me when I whistle, I look at them. It's like, you know, I wish, you know, I'm gonna have to pull myself back and to say, you know what? I offer what I offer. Nobody else is Carole Anne Kaufman. Nobody else does it the way I do. I get to do it my way. And that's what I think we all need to own, the awesomeness of our own, you know, display of our art form. And that, you know, and whatever it is, you know, there's no real hierarchies. And, you know, because, you know, the first half of art is in the sharing. Well, the first half of art is in the doing of it. That I believe the elevated level of art is in the sharing of it. You know, and you can be very gratified writing a poem. There's another level, and not everybody shares their art. So I don't want to criticize that, but I do want to challenge people who are in the closet with their art, right? And think, oh, this is just me, da, 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 da. There's something available for you.
Yeah.
Right? There's something available when you share it. And if you never have, I just really encourage people to do so. It's such a breakthrough, because not only do you kind of admit to yourself you want to shine a little bit, which is so you're so shocked to see who wants to connect with you. You're so shocked to see that vulnerability and that passion. And there's people for that. Just like there's, you know, lovers and friends for everybody. There's art partners and community for everybody, you know, but we have to get out there and do that stuff.
That's right. Now, your World Whistlers Convention in Kawasaki, Japan. Let's see. Creative Being was there to create satellite events and activities. And then you performed classical and popular compositions in the opening concerts, as well as performing in the final exhibition with Jazoon Cafe world champion ukulele player. Wow, that's a lot. Tell us about that.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Well, I just got back from Japan. Yes, I went to the World Whistlers Convention in Kawasaki, which is right outside of Tokyo. You don't even know you're not in Tokyo. There's so much going on in this whole area. You know, Japan has got so many busy areas, busy cities. It's my fourth time going. So starting with the end, yes, I was able to be a part of their event. They graciously invited me to be part of their symposium. I was there for their opening concert, their closing concert. The closing concert was phenomenal. I had a world champion ukulele player playing with me. It was so fun. So at these competitions, so the World Whistlers Convention is put on by a team in Japan, my friends that do that event, and they also come out and they participate in my event. You know, we're a very boutique kind of world, so we're very closely related, and you know, we love to partner with each other. And Japan is great at being really organized, and my team went out there. We wanted to learn how to get a little more structured, because you know, an artist is running the show and it's a little frantic sometimes, but we also know that a Japanese accountant is running that show, right? And they are very rigid. So we wanted to come and splash a little spice that Creative Being likes to put together, and a little bit more artistry. So it was a really fun union. basically at these events, people always want to know, how does a world championship whistling event go? And although the Masters of Musical Whistling International Festival and Competition in Hollywood, which I created, has slightly different rules than the World Whistlers Convention in Japan, very similar. We talked earlier about musicality, right? We're looking for people with musicality. We're looking for people with world-class talent. Are you in tune? Is your song selection great? Is it challenging? Does it give me wings, right? I don't have that on the sheet, but that's really what we're looking for, right? If whatever you would expect a clarinet artist to be able to do, that's what I'm expecting. And I don't mean specific songs. I mean sound great, have technique, wow the audience, right? And at the Masters of Musical Whistling, I offer extra points for presentation, because I believe that in order to elevate whistling to where we want it to be in the mainstream, it's got to be a little bit sexy. It's got to be really approachable. It's not enough for somebody to get up there and do a song like an opera singer, right? Some opera singer who's up there who's phenomenal, but they close their eyes and they're just singing to themselves. It's like, it sounds beautiful, but I'm here to connect. Artists connecting, right? I mean, it's about anything you want it to be about, but this is my thing, right? It's about, if you're going to get up on that stage and you're going to say that you're a world champion, I want to see something amazing. Now, just for the record, it may or may not be true that I was once upon a time beat. My ass was beat, maybe, in North Carolina by somebody that I thought maybe did not have the star quality that I am now insisting that my that my performers have. Because I was like, I got beat by somebody who was not giving the wow factor, right? They sounded great, and so that was like, not on my watch at my event. I'll make sure, that sort of thing. So. Hey, our baggage comes with us and turns into whistling festivals. There you go.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds so exciting. I like the whole Jazzun Cafe. I love that. Now, you were featured on NHK Japan's national news morning show all throughout I don't know how, but I discovered that news channel in 2020 because I wanted to get world news rather than just the local news. And I discovered it, and I discovered all these great shows that were on the same channel, which I can't remember. I think it is NHK. It's a whole, I think it's Japan's national, not only news, but I found myself watching Biking Through Japan. I found how to make Japanese dishes. I was all about Japan from 20 to 2023. But I love that the national news program, because I found out what was going on in Saudi Arabia, in Sweden, in Finland, in England, in Africa, and I loved how there was so much going on that I didn't know about. How did you get on NHK Japan's national news morning show?
Well, we all know it's who you know, right? And and I mean, you're the expert on that. You know everybody. You make real concerted efforts to create and maintain positive relationships with people. And so, just like I was saying with the Japanese team, right? That we have a friendship. So ultimately, the simple answer to your question is, through their PR, reached NHK. NHK wanted some content. They found it interesting. They contacted, and I think because I'm the international participant that is inside of the organization, if you will, as opposed to contestant, that I'm in a position, and I'm used to speaking on television programs or what have you. So I think it was both a generous offer to give to me that opportunity, and also they know I have a little bit of experience. And I think, hey, she's American, proving, hey, look we're international, that's always a good thing, and that's part of why I invite the Japanese producer out to be our head judge, right? Because we are international and we want people to see, yes, we're not just focused on Americans. We're trying to get as global as possible. Just as a quick side note, there's also an online competition that is out there, and the International Whistlersguild.com. You can always go online. That's for people that maybe don't have the bucks right? To get out and fly out to the US or into Japan. There's only 2 competitions, right? So, or people that just want to do online. It's a great competition. You get to see some phenomenal talent, and there's nothing like live performance, right? I would never grandfather somebody who won a living room competition, right? Just because I can talk to you on Zoom does not mean I know how to talk in front of a group of people, right? And so there's a little different point of view, but I absolutely love what they're doing. As far as NHK and the Who You Know, obviously the answer is, that I knew the people that needed some people to do it. But I want to broaden that out to more say, this is why, and I'm putting this in the framework of artists that are up and coming artists, right? A lot of times we like to separate business is here, personal is here, this is here, this is here. I'm a believer, for the most part, is what you see is what you get. Who I am, I'm taking it everywhere into my life. And that's how people relate to us. So if I present myself as somebody who has integrity, who shows up for a job, who does what I say I'm going to do, I mean, don't ever expect me to be on time, but for sure if I'm more than 10 minutes late, I'm not coming, because I'm not. I show up, right? I know what my faults are. I know that, but nobody ever got to say Carole didn't show up. So when a job shows up where you need to make sure that somebody can talk, okay, I got that, no problem. That's pretty obvious. But can I show up?
Yeah.
That's when you start getting hired. That's when you can do a couple little freebies where you show up and you act professional. You act the same level of professional with the free act as you do with the $10,000 act. That's when you start building a reputation where people say, hey, we have an opening for our national news show. Can you run over there real quick for us? And then they sit back and they don't worry. Nobody's calling and saying, hey, did you show up? Are you going? Or you know what I mean? They know that you bestow that trust on somebody.
Right.
Because as we know, whatever it is that you hired me for, I now speak for that person.
Yeah.
And so how you represent yourself, we sometimes as artists, we like to think it's only showing up when we're on the stage. It's not. We're watching you before and after. That's where we're really watching you, to see whether I want you on my team. Not, you can't, right?
That's right. And I want that. Did you record the footage from being on NHK? Because I would love to.
I'm waiting for that to show up. Actually, we're in the process of completing the paperwork so that they can send me an online.
I have to have that. I have to promote that. That's one of my favorite shows. Okay, let's talk about the Masters of Musical Whistling International Festival and Composition. A competition at the Barnsdall. Is it Barnsdall Park in Hollywood. I understand it has whistlers from around the world, and they're coming to compete for the first place title. I think it's abbreviated MMW. It's the only place where whistlers can compete with a live band performance inspired by, and I thank you for this credit, inspired by my experiences with Priscilla Leona and needing to perform with a band on a dime. Tell us about that. Thank you.
Well, let me just start with that part, because that part is so fun. I tell that story all the time. So I have, as you just so well said, I have, one of 2 live competitions in the world, and for this up and coming art form. And one of the things that sets me apart is that I have this live band division. So that means that on Friday, my whistlers who have flown in from all over the world, we have about 15 are in my high level 3, my elite level of people that I already have auditioned extensively with popular and classical songs via YouTube, right? That's my first level of competition. Now they come in, they get a 10-minute rehearsal, and then the next day they are performing in front of 3 international judges, deciding whether or not they're the world champion after a 10-minute rehearsal. Super rigorous, okay? And so I have been very lucky to know Priscilla professionally and personally, and you've been a big part of how I came up as an artist, because you're so encouraging. And I remember Priscilla was hiring me for singing gigs, and things like this that I didn't even know I could sing. I love to sing. I did singing, but somebody hiring me to sing, it was so empowering, to think somebody would respect me to that level, and so through our relationship, you constantly were giving me awesome opportunities that kind of culminated in your birthdays. That why I was just the, so some of you may not know that Priscilla, among her many, many talents, probably the only one who has more titles than I do. She in her own right is a producer and an event creator, and she would use all that to create these really awesome birthday parties where we would have all kinds of people and celebrities and fun, and always a live band. That her husband was actually the incredible, I mean, he's known throughout the whole jazz community. He's a phenomenal musician. And so here I was showing up fresh with my trophy of singing tracks, right? You give them your CD or your cassette tape, and they push play, and then you go up and you whistle. That's what I was used to doing. But here's Priscilla asking me, hey, can you come MC? And we also want you to whistle. So I know how to MC, but now you want me to whistle. Okay, well, when's the rehearsal? There's no rehearsal. Okay, well, can I call the guys? No, just send me an email and tell me what song. Okay. And sometimes I didn't even get that. So I show up. Luckily, Priscilla and Albert are very welcoming. I always felt very comfortable. And also, by the time I showed up, the audience was already there. So I had to pretend like I was. And you go up and it's like, okay, well, let's do Misty, right? So step one, know a song, right? And they would say, oh, what key? And I would be, I don't know, right? So it'd be like, okay, I think this is the first note, right? So, kind of different. And, and then we'd launch into a song, and whatever happens, happens. And luckily for me, I'm working with Albert and his team of really phenomenal musicians. So they would cover me and I would cover them. And it was always really great, right? And that was when, I noticed, the first couple of times I did it, you're just brushing the sweat off. But when it started becoming the pattern, right? That's what happens. I show up for the gig. Oh, there's a band. Oh, cool. Hey, can you know this? And then I started capturing the key, right? Okay. And these are little green things that I didn't really even know what that meant, and I thought that meant the first note, and so for me with this live band division, so first of all, once I started, especially with the contrast of showing up and being nervous, luckily for me, I have a thing, which is I accidentally look confident no matter what I'm doing. It doesn't matter if I'm secure. It's just one of those things about my personality. So I could pull it off. But I realized this is not the way you want to do it. You want to be faking the confidence. You got to know your key. You got to know what song you can do. You got to have these things in your back pocket. That, what my dad taught me, and this goes along with who it is that we're talking to, the answer is yes.
Yes.
Do you do this? Oh, yeah, for sure. Or do you know how to juggle? Yeah, absolutely. Do you speak French? Sure. Right? I mean, let the chips fall later. Who knows? Maybe one bonjour, one au revoir. You don't know, but I mean, when Priscilla said, hey, can you come and MC? Sure. And there's a band up. Okay. You just say yes and you show up. But there became an arc where I started really gaining confidence because of those gigs and other gigs that I would show up. And it was like, I had a song in my back pocket. I could work with a band, a 2-minute rehearsal. As a matter of fact, with Jazoon Kim, we had such a laugh. That's the world champion ukulele that I played with in Japan. I was running late. He shows up. He's late. Next thing you know, we're upstairs. We're doing a rehearsal. I don't want to blow out my lips and overuse my embouchure. So I'm singing along. Finally, we get to Sukiyaki, which is a famous Japanese song that I want to do with the audience. I can't really remember it. He's like, I can't really remember it. He listens to a couple bars. Next thing you know, I was like, da 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 da, right? Yeah. Okay, I'll see you out there, right? I mean, we didn't even practice the damn thing, and we're out, And so the thing is that I am, obviously, you can tell I'm a pretty passionate person. I'm very passionate about whistling. I'm very passionate about the things I think I know.
Yeah.
Whether they're true or not, who the hell knows? But I still think I know them. I think that wowing somebody is important when you're introducing something new that they don't want to like. Nobody wants to like whistling. When they introduced Carole Anne Kaufman, the Whistling Diva, oh God, okay, can't wait to see what this is, right? Maybe they're not being negative, but they're really not being positive. They don't know. And so you are the bridge from ignorance, right? And the hope is that you are the bridge to appreciation and support, right? That, whistling is just another art form. Obviously, all art forms should be honored, right? That's really when you distill the conversation, it's like, why are we creating hierarchies about art forms? That's ridiculous, and in 2024, people don't realize musical whistling is a world-class instrument. Come on. I mean, everything is everything. Look at the talents that are out there. That's the one thing that social media does that is absolutely awesome, is everybody gets their 10, 20, 30 minutes of fame now. You get to really, you don't have to hide. You can show, and we're part of this idea of building appreciation.
Right. And now what I found, thank you for that. You are the party doesn't even start until you get there. And not only do you whistle, and you're a very good singer. I can't coax a song out of you these days, but back in the day, I could get some songs out of you. But you also add comedy and performance. And what's great about you, if someone were to hire you, I cannot recommend you enough, because you're not just getting one thing whistling. You're getting a comedy act. You're getting a performance. Who knows? Legs are going to be going up in the air. I'll never forget that one picture I have with those legs up in the air. But you just can acclimate to any environment, and that's so, so important, because just think about it. If you're just whistling, well, are you just going to whistle? No, you got to add more stuff. You got to add a performance, and you cover the whole room, no matter how small the space is, and you're able to do that. And then you're so alert and present, and you're so in tune with what's going on in your environment, which is so important for an artist, or anyone really that's performing. I can't tell you how many, you weren't there, but a couple events that I hired someone, and they were singing songs by reading the lyrics off of their phone in front of my audience. I nearly died, but never would you get that from Carole Anne Kaufman. And if she didn't know the lyrics of the song, she'd whistle it. So it's like, okay, so she's supposed to be singing a song, and then she whistles it. So now you got the singing and the whistling, and then there's some legs kicking, and then she's always coming with an outfit that is, it is highlight, spotlight worthy. So, I mean, I can't say enough about you, girl. You know, you're on my hit list of stars. But what was very exciting about to hear is that you're going to be part of this documentary. Now, I had not heard of Finch No Worries. I love that name in Australia. It's ironic because I love Australian, everything Australian. I watch the sitcoms, the dramas. I'm watching Miss Fisher's murder mysteries right now. Coming out so they came out to do a documentary with a dozen crew, interviewing you and all of the Whistlers, and following some of them to their gigs, apparently, I guess, to get footage. And I guess you're hoping that it's going to bring much needed attention to the art form. So what was interesting is you said there hasn't been a film about musical whistling in 20 years. I didn't even know there was one at all, ever. So tell us about that.
Yeah, it's really exciting. Actually, I just had a meeting with the team, the director, of Finch there in Australia. They're an incredible team. They just keep winning awards. So they have produced the Quincy Jones documentary that's out on Netflix right now. That's won a bunch of awards. They do Chef's Table. They went to Sundance 2024 and won the U.S. Grand Jury Prize this year. So they are really doing a lot in the industry right now. And so it's phenomenal and unbelievable that they got their sights set on us. And as you mentioned, came out with a giant team, supplemented with a U.S. team. They came out before the event, to record all the pitch product and all of that. They came out to my hair studio, did interviews. They're actually they're doing a kind of a world tour where they're going to Japan, going off to New Jersey for our world champion. And there's a Spanish whistler and then a U.S. whistler that they're also focused on. So, for example, Lauren Elder, she's an American who's a Broadway star and also a whistler. And she's currently moved just back to Los Angeles, and she's gigging and whistling and doing all kinds of wonderful things. And she's one of my champions. And so basically, excuse me, there was a movie called Pucker Up when I was going to the competition in North Carolina International Whistlers Convention. And the back of my head is in that documentary. And I remember seeing the team walk by me and not talk to me. And, it got some good visibility. It was very well received, won awards. And I didn't notice a lot of movement culturally in the perception of whistling. And inside of the film, which was a very nice film, it kind of maybe perpetuated a few stereotypes about whistling as well. And there were not really any women featured very much. There was one woman featured, but that's, what always is on my mind. Is it an equal thing? Are we promoting whistling for all people, art for all people? And so, I mean, very mind blowing, right? To have this whole team. I had a battery pack and my own photographer running around the campus with me. At one point, one of our whistlers got drunk, and the next day I had to give him an intervention. I was like, dude, you got to go back to rehab, and I look over and there's the camera guy in the corner. I'm like, oh God. When I talked to the director, I was like, hey, you remember that part where I lost my shit and did probably the most embarrassing conversation with my staff that I've ever done? Did that make the cut? He's like, yeah, it did, so apparently I'm going to be in the documentary too. So it's great. It's very exciting that we're focusing on these up and comers, because when I got into the whistling world, I was 28 and I was a baby. There was no 28-year-olds, right? I was very young and glamorous, and and then it started growing, with the advent of the internet and things like that. So now we have 3 of the 4 whistlers. They're all younger than me, but 3 of them are young, sexy people that are out there doing the damn thing with whistling. It's very exciting. And of course, I'm super honored to be one of the focal points of the film. And we're hoping that, that when I do the Masters of Musical Whistling, which I do every other year, it's biennial, we're hoping that the film will somehow capture some attention and help with that snowball, so that when in September 2025, I have the MMW Masters of Musical Whistling, that we're going to have a lot more attention and a lot more people coming out to, to view what's going on and to participate and all of that good stuff. And, of course, our nonprofit puts it on. So we would love our nonprofit to break even, right? And to do all that stuff. That's the next step. And just as a side note, the reason I created a nonprofit was because apparently people don't believe you're doing anything unless you register with the government, right? So, how do you prove that you're a difference-making organization? You sign up some paperwork, you register with the government. How do you prove you love your partner? Register with the government. I mean, that's what we do. So I found out it was that easy for people to believe I was trying to do what I was actually already doing. I had to sign some paperwork and have a board, and, if that's what America wants me to do, that's what I'm going to do. And
plus,
so
they have lots of grants and scholarships available too.
All that support and all that listening. And so we're so excited to bring some more attention to whistling. Obviously, I hope it's going to do wonderful things for my career. I would love to segue into a career where I'm performing and speaking full time. It's my dream to be able to go out and to help people really elevate their relationship with themselves. My master's degree is in communication studies, and intrapersonal communication is what I'm most interested in. So interpersonal is you and me, intrapersonal is me and me. And that's where it's all sourced, right? And the first step is appreciating who you are and what you do. And we use art as that anchor, because everywhere else in life, we have all these blockades and all these things. But here in art, we have that free space. And if we can just give ourselves that permission to own what it is that we do, I think that is part of the pathway of how we capture the attention of this documentary team, right? Not just because we're whistlers, but because we're passionate about what we do, because we're bringing, in the face of people saying, hey, that's not important. I'm standing here and I'm saying, you know what? Yeah, it is. It is important. Yeah. I get to decide what's important to me. And I even get to create the idea that it might be important to you too. And that's wonderful.
Oh, make sure that you let me know when it's ready to be submitted to film festivals, because as you know, I'm a judge and screener of many film festivals, and I would love to enter those into my international film festivals. Now, I understand you just wrapped the Monrovia Music Fest, one of San Gabriel Valley's largest music and art festivals. Tell me what you did over there.
Thank you so much. So the Monrovia Music Fest is kind of like the first baby of my greater productions, if you will. So, you know, Priscilla knows me back in the day when I created my stand-up shows, right? And for me, and I'm saying this again because we're talking to artists here. First of all, we're artists, so the rules are very fluid in some ways, right? That we make our own rules. That's kind of one of my messages for today. So for me, you know, starting up in the stand-up comedy world, I learned right off the bat, how does it go? Oh, you get 5 minutes. You got to bring all your friends, because if you don't bring your friends, you're at the end when your friends have already left. If you had 2 of them, right? And so they call bringer shows. You got to pay to play. Yeah. And I realized for me, you know, and it's probably because I'm an egomaniac on, you know, Tuesdays and Thursdays, but, you know, it's like 5 minutes. It's not enough, right? You're just getting going. And so instead of being the guy who wants to say 5 minutes isn't enough, how come you're not this? How come you're not that? Well, what can I do? Oh, I know what I can do. I can have my own show. I can promote my own show. Right now, I'm a hairstylist. I had a clientele, so I had a little bit of a resource, right? But you create your own resource as well. And so I started doing stand-up shows because I wanted to develop as an artist. Yes. That's really why, right? And so you with 5 minutes, you can get a good close 5 minutes. But when you're, I don't know, I wanted to say when you're a true artist, which is bullshit. It's total bullshit. But at the same time, when you're being true to your inner artist, maybe that is a little more accurate. Then you're honoring your own inclinations, right? My inclination was to share more, to give more, to participate more. In 5 minutes, I can't build who I am as an artist in 5 minutes. I need to explore. The only way, and I want to just take a quick segue. I know we're supposed to be talking about I think the music fest, and we're talking about comedy, but you know, my philosophy is audience first. It's always audience first. Now, there's a whole sub-conversation about honoring your own artistic integrity that is the umbrella conversation that encompasses everything that we say. If you don't have integrity and you don't feel good about what you're doing, we're not even conversing. This is not even happening, right? So that's step one. But when you walk in, you know what the job is, you're taking it on, you're giving it your 100% because you said you would be there. And now, you know, we all learned during COVID one very important thing. The artist needs the audience and the audience needs the artist. And one thing we noticed is that art didn't stop. Performance art didn't stop. They were not letting that stop. People need that. You saw it. We were down to essentials, and people had to have their comedy. They had to have their connections in those ways. And so that's just the advice that I'm going to give. You didn't ask for it, but I'm still going to say, because I am so passionate. It's the audience first. Now, maybe during this podcast, I'm a little long-winded. I'm sorry. I don't think I'm putting the audience first, but it is in the back of my head. And that's why performance value is so important. Eye contact, when you're on the stage, that's how people connect. That's how people realize this is not a movie. This is real life performance. There is a person right here. There is, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, we always want to take care of the audience, because once you're up there on that stage, that's their time. This is not about you trying out the joke that you wanted to try. It's not about you doing the stuff that you know doesn't hit. This is about you sacrificing certain things so you can provide the entertainment. Now, yes, we weave in those experiments. We try a few of those jokes. But once you know that joke is only for you, it's off the roster. You know, I can't do the photography joke that I've been wanting to do for 20 years. You know, the guy that all that stuff on his tongue, and you know, all his tongue was so white. It was like, you're not a photographer. Put the film away. It's still not funny. Still not funny, right? But it's my joke for me. I'm sorry.
Albert probably loves that joke. You know how he is with those jokes.
Albert,
You do so many things. I want people to know that you are accessible to them for things other than just hiring you to perform as a whistler, because you do speaking engagements, you do coaching, writing, hosting, private performances, which is my favorite, professional speaker. You're often invited to various groups and organizations to speak about artistic expression and inspiration, self-expression. And we're just getting a sample of what we would get if someone hired you. Do you go all around the country and speak at universities and schools, or where do you mostly go to do your speaking, and where would you ultimately like to go?
Well, I haven't had the opportunity to hit too many different states. A lot of times I'll segue different performances. Either I'm traveling somewhere and I've been known to travel somewhere. I went to Chicago a few years ago, called a few clubs, right? Try to book a gig. Did some little gigs there, right? Even little open mics, right? Because even when you do an open mic, this is another little side tip that I believe that this is a little fluid. But for example, if you perform in front of an audience in Chicago, right? You go to Chicago and you perform in front of an audience. Technically, you can say, I performed in Chicago. Now, granted, maybe you don't want to do a living room performance, but if you're doing even karaoke, right? This is like a little bit of a fudge that you can add. This is totally a tangent here, but it's, to me, our CV is very important. Our resume is important. It's a people's first line of, who are you, right? All this stuff that we said, I can craft who I want you to think I am in any particular way. And so it's important to use those things for our advantage, right? It helps. We don't want to stretch the truth, but we do want to do is lead the breadcrumbs for people to be like, oh, you're a professional. I can trust you, right? That you see, oh, I've performed, right? But anyway, I've been very fortunate to do a few international performances. Most recently when I was in Japan was incredible. I did a symposium about whistling where I taught about stage presence and owning the stage, eye contact, some of the things that we touched on here. I have been able to perform just various civic groups, different things like that. And that's another thing. When I was coming up, groups like the Rotary Club, right, and the Kiwanis Club, these people, they're little small things, right? But again, when you're building your experience and you're building your CV, right? Just like I can say to you right now, oh, I've been doing civic groups and organizations for years, right? Very professional, sounds very impressive. That might mean I did 3 Kiwanis groups in 10 years. You have no idea. But again, I don't know if this is making I hope I'm not muddying the conversation. I'm trying to answer the question and also talk about how I frame what it is that I do. This is the backstage talk, right? It's like, how do we elevate who we are to the people that are watching us, because it makes them feel comfortable. You got to get that. We're not trying to overinflate ourselves. We are trying to say, hey, you can trust me. I know how to handle myself. I've worked. I do things. I'm out there. You know what I mean? And so whether I say, what's that? You say?
I said, yeah, you're right. I absolutely know exactly what you said. It's true. You don't want, there's so many times, because of course, when I'm booking people for the show, most of them now are putting their titles, which is fine. But it's a little confusing, because when you say multiple award-winning film director, we go back in our minds immediately and we think Emmy winner, Oscar winner, all these winners. But when they say multiple award winning, that could mean that they've won many different titles in film festivals. Technically, it's true. They've won multiple best producer, best film, best this, best that. And I think that that's great that you can use that, because it is technically true. I think that you have to be very careful about that, because people can make it, you can make yourself have the appearance of being too pretentious. So that's another tip that I want to give people. Don't keep saying multiple award-winning producer and director and this and that and that, because yes, you have won awards, but when you come on to a show and people are saying, okay, what are your awards in? And you are at the inception of your career and you just won a couple awards at film festivals. Well, they go, well, that's not how you presented yourself. So you have to, that's my tip. Be very careful about that. Now, also coaching. Carole offers one-on-one and small group coaching using her master's degree in communication studies, as well as years of transformational and self-development training. Now, if I wanted you to coach me, what would I ask you to coach me in? Like, obviously whistling, but what else?
Yeah, so just to, I feel like I keep trying to answer your question after I was supposed to answer the question because I've been rambling so much. So thank you for putting up with my disorganized communication. I'm excited to be here.
Creative, artistic expression.
Okay, good. That's what I'm going to tell myself, right? Because that is like me trying. We all have our strengths, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, yes, how do we harness all the energy and be loving to ourselves and know it's like, when I leave today, I'm going to feel really awesome about our conversation. And I'm also going to say, okay, Carole, you did ramble a little bit. Maybe next time we can ramble a little less. But nonetheless, encapsulating both questions. First of all, as far as professionally, I'm kind of, if I show up, I'm going to find a space that I can be useful. That's the kind of person I am. So if I'm being an ordained minister, I have been known to do the hair before the wedding, then do the wedding, then post the wedding, any level of that. But, I love doing private parties. I love doing corporate events, anything where we want to have a conversation with others or ourselves is really where I like to step in. So when it comes to relationship coaching, which I, have done, or at least dabbled in over the years, that definitely is facilitated by my work with transformational organizations and really diving into certain mental processes that are maybe not the norm, right? In the sense of how can I, when somebody pissed me off, how can I take responsibility for that? Right? Yeah. These type of other attitudes where they're not the thing that we really want to go to. They're the upper level conversations that we have with ourselves that we're looking and saying, how am I generating what's going on in my world, right? Am I sitting around saying, hey, I only get 5 minutes for a comedy show? Or am I saying, hey, I'm going to create my own comedy show, right? I'm not saying necessarily that's easy depending on where you live, but we all know, like, once you get an idea that inspires you, that's when we really take off. And so also a big belief of mine is making sure to manage our conversations so that, for example, if I book a hall and I'm going to do a show, I'm doing the show, right? I don't have an out. I'm not maybe going to do the show. It's not maybe going to be a success. I'm doing a successful show, and that's what it is that I'm got my head on. It doesn't take anything to put my energy on. It might be a piece of shit. That's nothing. That's common,
Right.
like don't, why be normal type of thing. So when it comes to elite coaching, like we were talking about, I have one client that over the years we're working, she does gigs with stand-up, but the real goal is to build a one-woman show, right? And the theme that comes through in anything that I am doing is authenticity. That is what that's what we're building on. And it's always going to go back to that root because, I was just going to say, I was thinking about that horrible joke. I can't believe I said to put the film away. Like, I can't.
I liked it.
It was wrong, but right. But I mean, it was very, and weirdly self-indulgent, but at the same time, when we are performing for our audiences, we have to be really, really conscious of what it is that we are trying to represent. I am separated myself from the space where I get to say anything and disparage anybody I want in my comedy. That, I love making fun of people with penises. I love it. It's an easy target. But, I love men more than I love what joke that I wrote 20 years ago. And
Right.
now I want to be a part of perpetuating the message that reflects what I want my world to look like.
Right.
And so that's a personal responsibility that I take on. I'm not saying everybody does, but I do believe it's a little higher level, the authenticity, right? Making sure that what I'm saying is honest, right? For me, I'm not really writing jokes that don't pertain to my life. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm not here to say you shouldn't. For me, I want to be authentic. I want to know that I am giving a piece of myself to my audience. And so, you kind of, that provides a little more danger to the situation.
Yeah. And you're available for so many different types of things. You have 25 years as a stand-up comedian, so you can help with coaching on that for elite level competitions and corporate speakers to have a comedic edge. It's so very important for speakers to have a little comedy in there. Oh, I've heard some bad situations happen with corporate speakers. So it's very important as a small business or a person that has to go speak. I think you should hire a comedian to teach. Actually, I have a friend who does that professionally. He teaches what does he do again? He's going to kill me if I get this wrong. He goes to like IBM and Apple and Google, and he teaches people how to do presentations with a comedic edge. So that's very important. And you could, I imagine, coach that with just even not only on that level, but also I would imagine, what if you want to hire Carole Anne Kaufman to work with your kid to do an oral presentation? Get an A. What's going to get the kid an A? Doing a presentation with a little comedy. Nobody thinks of things like that. I always think outside the box as to where you can take a level of competency. So people aren't thinking, hey, should I target that rich mom whose kid might need that A in an oral presentation? Or a college presentation. So I imagine contact Carole for that. Also, private events. She is the master of ceremonies. And yes, she has quick wit. She has a great audience connection, as I said. And she is in demand. I know you're probably always booked for these corporate and private functions. And one thing you touched upon, which I was so blown away by, when you told me that you were an ordained minister, and I said, how did you do that over the internet, that you were able to marry people? So is that the ordained minister part?
Well, that's very close. I definitely am an ordained minister, but I've been an ordained minister since 1984.
Okay.
And so it was mail order. We didn't have the internet back then.
Oh, okay.
My dad told me, hey, there's something coming in the mail for you. I'll let you know when it gets here. And he presents me with a certificate of the ordination. And so
you're able to marry people. Just if somebody wants to get married, you still have that ability to do that. I imagine you got to keep it up, some sort of.
The state of California is very lax. Once you're a minister, always a minister.
Okay.
And yes, I absolutely love doing weddings. I create, anything that involves relationship, communication. That's pretty much where you're going to find me, like trying to sneak my way into that, just like you, right? Anything that has to do with art. It's like, yeah, sign me up. I'm there. So I really love the balance of that heartfelt, like digging in, like really getting in and finding out why are people connecting, right? And then how do we take that information and connect with our audience at the wedding? And then how do we help to reinforce the things that this couple is saying is their foundation? I love to put that in the space, print it up for them so that they have, it's like, here's their little guidebook, right? It's what they told me, like why they feel connected.
You're like a one-stop shop. Okay, so you could hire Carole to marry you, and then you could, at the same that she could perform, she could do the speech, she could give you, oh, wait a minute. So you hold on, let me get it over. Okay, so you could hire her. Hey, I want you to marry us. Check, I can do it. Oh, by the way, we need a little marriage counseling. Check. She can do that. Then, could you maybe possibly do a little speech? Yeah, check. I can do that. Can you possibly perform whistling? Check. Got that. We're going to need to know where we have to go after. Well, I've been to 26 countries. I can tell you all about it. You don't need anybody at your wedding except Carole Anne Kaufman. That's it. She can do it all, right? You can do everything. Well, we've come to the very exciting part, which is to actually see some video clips. I believe the first one, I don't know how Albert has organized it, but I believe we're going to see 2 video clips. One of them is a snippet from the World Whistlers Convention for Besame Mucho, depending. And then the second one is going to be the song A Whole New World with Akiko Shibata, a world champion whistler. So I don't know how he has this presented, but this is what you're going to see. And when we come back, maybe you can give us some other information, and then we'll close out the show. So without further ado, let's watch Carole Anne Kaufman performing.
Bésame mucho. Bring it up, my people. Here, Chatru.
My name is Clara Mayer, and I am the co-producer of Monrovia Music Fest. Monrovia Music Fest has been going on for 6 years. We've expanded, pretty much doubled every single time that we do this, and people tend to really love coming together for music.
The Monrovia Music Fest is all about bringing communities together through music and art. We have such an incredible assortment of bands, we have food, we have artisans, we have so much fun. We're really all about discovering Monrovia. So come on out, discover Monrovia, discover your own artistry. We have the opportunity to bring all of the communities in the San Gabriel Valley and the greater Los Angeles area with us together and get together and say, here's my neighbor, here's my friend. Get off of the computer, get off of your phone, and come meet your neighbor in real life.
I would say relax and enjoy the experience.
We like to say, if it comes from the heart, it's art. So do your thing, and other people are going to enjoy it too.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we direct your attention to the flagpole in the infield and the winner's circle as we welcome Carole Anne Kaufman, who will perform the Star-Spangled Banner. Carole Anne Kaufman is known around the world as the Whistling Diva. She is a two-time world champion and produces the Masters of Musical Whistling, the World Championships of Whistling in Hollywood, California. Born and raised in the San Gabriel Valley, you can see her on June 30th at the Monrovia Music Fest at Library Park in Monrovia. It's produced by Creative Being, Carole's nonprofit that produces events to inspire creativity and artistic self-expression. Check out MonroviaMusicFest.com and join her on June 30th at the Monrovia Music Fest. Please rise to honor America as we proudly present our national anthem. Ladies and gentlemen, Carole Anne Kaufman.
You see me? I'm over here clapping, and I was clapping for you too. Oh my God, that was so wonderful. I had a tear. I had to sop it up. Oh my God, that was so. And you something because that big ass truck was behind you, loud as anything, and your voice pierced right through it. I thought, no! And it was like, no problem. I got you right here, taking care of you. Oh my gosh, wasn't that wonderful to just reminisce about in your mind?
Oh, I love it. I mean, it was such a fun opportunity. Actually, my friend is the announcer at, again, who you know, right? My friend is the announcer at Santa Anita. So he was mentioning that, you know, they had some space and, again, just say yes. And, you know, it's so funny that performance is a perfect example of what we deal with as performers. I'm very proud of the performance, very thrilled about it. And I didn't realize that the camera was on me at the beginning when I was like stretching out my mouth, like getting ready, right?
But that's things that a person would do. It's normal.
I like to laugh ever backstage if possible. But I'm mentioning it because we always have these little things where sometimes the performance isn't perfect, and it's truly a muscle for us to focus on what's good, whether it's our performance or our life, right? We've got to center in and be like, yeah, okay, it wasn't perfect. Rarely is anything perfect, and it's still awesome. Nobody's expecting me to be perfect. Here's Priscilla telling me I look like a pro, right? I'm actually like warming up my mouth and doing all of that.
But you know that happens with most people. Sometimes when I do my shows, I completely blank out that I'm listening to the music for the intro of the show, and then Albert has cut to me, and I'm going, waiting, right? Because but nobody would even know that because they're just waiting for you to perform. That's all. Yeah. And I think you did such a fantastic job. That was so exciting. My friend Nicole, I don't think you've met her yet. My friend Nicole Santiago just sang the national anthem in front of the base, you know how they open the baseball game.
Yeah.
And I thought I actually have had a couple friends do that, and I thought, oh my God, what are you thinking? Oh, please don't mess this up. I would imagine, is that what you did? Please don't mess this up. Please don't, because you got to be thinking that it's a live performance.
Well, with the national anthem, it's all about the first note. So yes, you are monitoring that. And, you know, it is exciting. When you were speaking, I was also thinking of how, you know, podcasts and opportunities like this are just so awesome. They're wonderful opportunities for us to share ourselves, but really for us to build that confidence, right? Is that so many times we put these bars, we have these comparisons, we have all this stuff, and it's not important. What's important is that we create these opportunities for ourselves, that we live as artists, that we give ourselves opportunity to share what we're up to. It's not a competition. There's room for everybody. There's enough money for everybody. There's enough theaters for everybody. And if there isn't, there's people like me and Priscilla who just build our own damn theater if we need to. You know,
pioneer your own way, right, girl? Pioneer your own way. Bulldoze through. Through.
And
my gosh! I tell you.
I wanted to just circle back for a quick moment. You had asked me about my music fest, and I went on some narcissistic about myself, and I'm still going to talk about myself, but I did want to say that the music fest was my first big event. Other than, actually, here's another Priscilla story. For when I turned 40, 12 years ago, I had a birthday party. I had a big concert in the park. And I had never done that before. I'd only done stand-up shows, right? It's little stand-up shows, and I called Priscilla and Albert, and I said, hey, can you help me put a band together? I remember I still have somewhere the agenda that you created for me where I learned, you have to have an agenda. I didn't know.
You know, I do love creating those agendas. You've been to enough events. Everything is timed. 7 o'clock, 7:01, 7:02. I go crazy. I'm a micromanager, but I'm glad you appreciated my list.
Of course. But again, that's back to our theme. That's how we learn the who you know, right? Here, I'm getting hired for a gig by Priscilla, and I'm watching, what does she do, right? Then I'm doing a gig, and I'm saying, hey, lady, who does these amazing things, could you help me out? Actually, you offered. I was too scared to even ask, but and doing that is when I learned, like, oh, wow, if you make some calls and some musicians, you can create an event. And so when the opportunity came for me to start stepping in to create something to celebrate my city's birthday, I'm a proud Monrovian here in Southern California, and the birthday party for the city became just boring as F. And I was like, you know what? I want people to come out. And what I know is if you create something fun, people will come out, right? That's why people come to Priscilla's events. We know we're going to have a great time, right? You don't just invite people and say, you have to show up because you're my friend. You give them a reason to show up, because we're all ready to be comfortable on our couch. We've got to pull people, especially in this day and age. And so I got kind of, hot on creating this event. And it was a little community event. It started as a birthday party. The next thing you know, I'm doing an event. I'm calling a friend who has equipment. I'm calling my other friend who has a bunch of subwoofers in his, home studio. And we created a festival. And there are so many people that want to tell you, when I was doing, my one-woman shows, people, and I've since heard that there's many artists that do it this way, but there's a lot of squares that don't realize this is a good plan. First of all, doing whatever it is you need to do to create what you need to create. So for me, what do I need? I need inspiration. How do I get inspiration? Lots of different ways. Sometimes by seeing a stage. The first ever stand-up comedy show I ever did was because I walked into a bar and I was like, oh, wow, look at that stage. I could do my own comedy show. And it was like, yeah, I am going to do my own comedy show. And then you create it. You make some calls. You don't sit around and say, I shouldn't do that. I can't do that. For me, I have to book my show. Then I have a reason to write a show, right? Yeah. It's a little more dangerous to play that way, but there's all that opportunity. And so anyway, just to say, with my community festival, right, this was a little $1,500 event that had a couple hundred people show up. It's a $20,000 event with thousands of people that come now, right? That is the reason that we created our nonprofit, right? That this little project that was just, to try to support my community and to utilize the skills that I have become the way that I grow as a person, have become the way that I'm stretching, have also become the way I connect with my community. I was just reaching out to Priscilla the other day saying, hey, do you have any suggestions? Because I need some help with my infrastructure, right? And this is
Google Sheets. I need help with my Google Sheets, right? Yeah. And, don't be afraid. I'm talking about, to people. Don't be afraid of asking other people to help you. Don't try to take everything on. Delegate, especially when you are starting a nonprofit, because let me tell you, you can get in some serious trouble if you don't cross your T's and dot your I's. So it's very important that you definitely have a friend that's a lawyer, or at least sign up for LegalZoom. These are my tips. Also, girls and boys, get yourself an accountant, because you can really get in a lot of trouble with starting a nonprofit. I'm very glad that I know you got your shit all covered. But for people who think that I had a person whose husband contacted me and he was telling me his idea, and he said, I think I'm going to start a nonprofit because, and he listed, and I won't list the bullet points, but when I heard him, I was cringing, and I'm like, this is a scam. Whether you intention, because he's not a person that's a scammer, but because he wanted to create the event to make money as a job to pay himself, and he thought he could do it this way and he could do it that way, he didn't realize that you need an accountant and you need a lawyer, because there are strict rules that you have to follow when you have a nonprofit. So a lot of people these days, Carole Anne, I'm telling you, I've heard about 6 or 7 people call me up, ask me, because they know I've done that. I mean, I teach people how to set up small businesses. And when they tell me what that's the first thing I ask. What is your reason for setting up a nonprofit? Is it for you to have a job where you're collecting money as a salary? And if the answer is yes, I'm like, no. But eventually, that's a whole different subject. But my tip is, please make sure that you get an accountant and you have a lawyer, because you're going to need that. You can't just go setting up a business. And a lot of people, Carolyn, that I deal with in people who are producers and directors, they want to start an LLC or an Inc. and they have no idea what it is. So I would say my ending tip is please make sure that you know what an Inc. is and an LLC and the reason for both. So it's I'd love for you to give any tips for people who are thinking of starting a small business in the arts, because they don't have, a lot of people don't have, I mean, it's show business. It's not show artistic value, show business. So you do need to educate yourself a little bit on what you're doing because you are a business, you're an entrepreneur. Any tips with you starting that nonprofit that you could give to the audience?
That's a great question. I hope I have something of value. I mean, the thing that we've said first is really the first most important thing. It's who you know. It is not in the old school way of you have to get favors, but we got to open our mouth and have the conversations. You know, our Google searches can only do so much. You want to get as many opinions as you can and begin to, I mean, it's always a balance, but the first step is to begin to see what resonates with you. So for example, if somebody's telling me and I'm saying, hey, I need to book the venue and then I write the show. And some well-meaning person tells me, oh, you can't do it that way. You have to do it this way. Right. Mm-hmm. Then when I'm hearing things like have to, but it's not legal. Right. And I'm noticing when I hear that information, I'm feeling shut down. Instead, I was suddenly inspired by me moving forward and I'm going to do it come hell or high water. Or you're now, I'm kind of oppositional, but if somebody's putting rules on me that don't resonate, then go and go talk to another person and then do your own research to find out what the facts are, because people, it is a tricky thing. Like, so yes, we need to talk to our people, find out people that understand, and then also understand, just like when you go to the doctor, doctors are not gods, business owners are not gods. Right? So when you go to Google, it's going to say, have a business plan, do a this, do a that. Those are great things to do, reliable steps that you can do. And when I opened up my hair studio 25 years ago, I didn't have a business plan. My dad helped me pay the first bill. My aunt came and she talked to the landlord. You know what I'm saying? And then
build your team. Build your team is the message.
Exactly. And that is actually, I'm going to say what we've already said in a different way. You said that so perfectly, is that everybody in your world is a resource. As a matter of fact, I like strangers as resources. Sometimes if I'm having a dating issue, that's happened in the past, and I'm like, I can't call my friend, whatever, I've been known to be like, okay, so I had this conversation. What do you think I should do? You know what I mean? Like, people will
but you need an unbiased opinion on a lot of things.
Yes, and we have to understand that every single opinion is biased. Right? And everybody has their own point of view, and everyone will tell you that they're speaking facts, but facts are very rare. Opinions are very common. And so the most important thing, even though it's at the risk of being redundant, the most important thing is to keep your inspiration above water. Don't allow other people's ideas about what business has to look like to dictate how you function, because that's the one thing that I found, that it is a great idea to write a script and then book a show. That is brilliant. But if that's the rule, I would have never wrote a show. I would have never done jack shit. I don't function that way.
Right. Everybody's different, or they wouldn't be an artist. It's amazing. You just got to find the people that you click with and that works on your mindset. Ron Howard and all of the huge directors, they get a lot of flack for always hiring the same actors and the same behind the scene. Why do they do that? Because those are people that are in their tribe Those are the people that they click with. Those are the people that know how they work. They work well, very minimal arguments. So of course, why are you going to hire somebody that you have conflict with and that do things completely different? That's why those directors keep hiring those actors. I don't have a problem with the click, because, if they work well together, great. So find your tribe, find what works best for you. Not everybody works the same way and has the same mindset. So, but you are doing your thing, girl. Let me run your sights down. All right. To find out more about Carole Anne Kaufman, as if we haven't covered it in our 2 hours, there's more about her. Absolutely. mastersofwhistling.com, whistlingdiva.com, Monrovia Fest. I love coming to those. Facebook, Masters of Whistling, X, Master Whistling, Instagram, Masters of Whistling. You kept it consistent. And are there any that I didn't touch? Did we cover? I think we got it.
Soon enough, we'll have a worldofwhistling.com and creativebeing.org. So those are coming, And if anybody out there wants to build some websites or help out a nonprofit, we want you. Please come and be a part of our team. I want to just underline just our last little thing that we said, that we want to remember. What you said is so brilliant. Build the team, so succinct. And yes, and I feel like I'm in the process of that. And remember, if you so choose, every person on the planet gets to be on your team. Everyone's most favorite topic is themselves. If you want to pick somebody's brain and you want to, reach out to freaking Ron Howard if you want. You never know. But in the meantime, reach out to all the local people, all the regional people who are doing things. I know Priscilla, myself, all the people that I associate with are honored when somebody comes up and says, hey, we love what you do. How'd you do it? Da, da, da. Maybe I give you boring advice like it's all who you know, or maybe you get a nugget in there, that really makes a difference. But, they could become a part of your team, but that information is, as my mother always says, nobody's so stupid they can't set a bad example, right? Or so useless they can't set a bad example, but good examples are everywhere, and people love to talk about themselves. Open your mouth. I think that's the theme that I've mostly been saying today. It's like, just open your mouth, just share, just connect. And love yourself. Yeah.
Ask and you will receive. Whether you want it or not, you're going to get something back, right? Carole Anne, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. We love you, Carole Anne.
Albert.
Wait, here's my extent of whistling. That's it. That's all she wrote, folks. I said I'll have to work on it.
Thank you so much for having me back.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And keep us abreast about that documentary, because we want to promote that for sure.
Yes.
Thank you, Miss Carole Anne Kaufman. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Carole Anne Kaufman. We'll see you next week. Bye.
You're listening to Question Reality with Priscilla Leona.